hear me well. Hello everyone. That's a nice game. Playing can be a good integration practice. Okay, so let's see.
He's got 100 of them.
Yeah.
Not
Almost. Okay. So yeah, how can seeing behind the veil help us become more awake as a planet? I will be sharing with you today my own very biased perspective on that. So I do make a lot of assumptions, and this presentation could be unpacked for hours, so take it with a grain of salt. I do look also old and wise and experienced. Not really, it's my first such presentation. So. Okay, so a little bit about my own kind of transformative background, my transformative experience and my background. I wasn't into psychedelics, spirituality, awakening, growth at all. I was a strategy consultant at LK Consulting 7 years ago. Not really known for its connection to spirituality, strategy consulting. And basically, psychedelics happened, they entered into my life, and I kind of started to question a lot of things. I had some very intense experiences, some were really unplanned, over 1,000 micrograms of LSD in a really, really bad setting. Okay, that kind of led me to, okay, there's no meaning in life, it's consensus reality. I had to go to Nepal, I had to meet some cave yogis, I had to kind of get an initiation there. And yeah, for me, that's why awakening, for me, I think there are different definitions, but I also stick to some definitions from spiritual traditions as well, especially Buddhism here. And with studies from professors like Daniel P. Brown, who recently passed last year, they also showed that there is a neurocircuitry of awakening, and that there are actually some neural correlates of awakening, so it's not just completely subjective. Okay, so here, basically why is psychedelics becoming a planetary phenomena? Well, there's a huge increase in the number of published papers. The number of psychedelic clinical trials are kind of taking off. There's an exponential growth. I don't know if you've seen Netflix's series from Michael Pollan on the book How to Change Your Mind. This is basically now in the mainstream. And some are even wondering whether the psychedelic bubble is bursting or not. And there is the logo of Synthesis, which is a Dutch company that kind of recently went bankrupt, and well, some are kind of wondering what's happening with all this. This is more kind of related with, is it a psychedelic renaissance or is it a psychedelic gold rush? Because well, there are all sorts of companies like Compass Pathways and MindMed that try to kind of patent all sorts of things and make lots of money, which inherently might not be the worst thing, but well, we have to really put things into perspective and kind of look at the thing. And for me, a very ridiculous thing was, I've heard this, I don't know if it's accurate fully, but I've heard it in the kind of psychedelic community. There is a company trying to patent pharmaplastica called Divine and trying to kind of make profit out of that.
always something.
That's all right? No? But we're nowhere near the fringe in the psychedelic field anymore. It's going to be like a $7 to $15 billion industry at least by 2029. So it is a planetary phenomenon. This is something that's really growing. So now kind of moving to very, very different, switching to a very, very different thing. I will be mostly talking about also ontological versus therapeutic integration. So ontological integration for kind of personal development, quest for meaning, and yeah, even awakening. And well, what are psychedelics from such a viewpoint? And here, this is not my own view. This is from everything I've researched so far and I've seen. This is research done by Elias Capriles. He's a transpersonal theorist and philosopher. And basically, he said that psychedelics are basically chemical razors of the energetic volume, determining the scope of awareness that have a consciousness expanding effect. So just bear with me a little bit, this is a bit more complex, but it's pretty interesting. So basically, when taking psychedelics, what can happen is a widening of the scope of conscious awareness, which basically dissolves the figure-ground division, brings into awareness the totality of the sensory continuum, so not just kind of what we see, but also what we hear, what we smell, in the mind sense, elicits suspensions of judgment, and delays basically the activation of the process that contrasts human experience. So this is all really profound, and we don't really fully know why, but the after effects, in cases with proper set and setting, are enhanced prosocial behaviors, deepened connection, more mindfulness, empathy, nature relatedness, etc. All right. So now a problem that I've seen with many, especially myself, and I relate with a peak, climb a peak of Mount Stupid, and then go into the Valley of Despair. Well, I hope to reach the plateau of enlightenment at some point, but that's far away. Yeah, for all the people that think that they can have a psychedelic experience, no matter how powerful and they'll get enlightened, well, at least according to spiritual traditions, that's definitely not the case, because psychedelic experience, like any experience that is mediated through something chemically, is compounded, conditioned, and dependent on causality, in karma. So when the karma runs out, that conditions these states, you return to some sort of kind of initial state. So, yeah. And in the vast majority of cases, if not all, you are not enlightened in the strict sense of the term, or have not necessarily reached an ontologically similar state. So that's my own view on that. However, it can happen through profound mystical experiences that you can get a taste of awakening. And the key insight here is this is just the beginning of the whole journey. So, important realization to prevent, because people who had psychedelics here, they had like an ego death, okay, they had an ego death, but then the spiritual ego comes, and that's even bigger sometimes, so that can be a big problem. So yeah, it's just the beginning. It's really just the beginning. Okay, so why is integration important for individual awakening and for planetary awakening? Well, not only does research show that, the motivation for having experience, the set and setting, and especially the integration done afterwards are key determinants of long-term transformative growth and development and, well, awakening, although that hasn't been studied really in depth. And there are many, many different definitions and approaches, and most basic one is basically incorporating the insights from the experience into the daily life. And as I said, there's a therapeutic and the ontological. A restoration of wholeness, which is a more Grothian approach, which basically kind of you are already whole and you kind of just reconnect with that. Or something that might be popular in the integral community, transcend and include, you just kind of peel off, go to deeper, more profound layers, whilst including what was left behind. By the way I see it personally, it's more as an attitude towards experience. So, and here, I think that proper integration really begins before the experience. So not during or after, but before, proper intention, set and setting. Alright. This is a bit of a random slide, but the number of, well, it's actually interesting in a way, because the number of experiences has grown a lot. I mean, I've tried to collect data on that. It's really hard to get, but some say that about 28% of Americans have tried at least one psychedelic. All right? And numbers are really on the rise. So in the last 10 years, I would say at least an 8% growth from what I found. However, at the same time, we're also experiencing more and more increase in anxiety, depression figures, so poorer mental health. And there is a really wide range of outcomes from psychedelic experiences. They're not guaranteed. They're not a miracle cure, and they're not guaranteed to make anything just in and out of themselves. So you can have a worsening of your state. You can have an interesting and beneficial experience, which is common. You can have really profound healing and personal growth and touching stories like we've heard. I mean, wow. It's becoming more and more common, thankfully. And also rare, you can have quantum leaps in transformation and taste of awakening. here, this is my own kind of very biased perspective of the different levels of integration. So this is just my own view from the experience past 7 years, having lots of personal experience, having experience in the field of consciousness studies, transpersonal psychology, working as an integration facilitator, working as an integration coach, and kind of seeing what people do, what they don't do. There's a level 0, which is no conscious integration whatsoever, and that sadly is still pretty prevalent because, let's not forget, many people use it at festivals or in very recreational settings, which again, there's absolutely nothing bad about it. However, there's a really, in the pursuit of planetary individual awakening, that might not necessarily be the thing. And then there's like level 1, which is the most basic kind of level of integration, helping one return to normal life, and it's beneficial, or at least it's avoiding harm. It's pretty common. And then there's kind of level 2, which is really good, and it's kind of in-depth work in group settings or individual settings, or with a coach or with a therapist or with friends, circle, and basically leads to many benefits and can lead to a productive lifestyle. And it's encouraged right now in the industry, so to speak. But then when it comes to planetary awakening and to lofty goals and to like really, you really believe that psychedelics can do something really big, then I think that there's also level 3, which is meta-integration term. And it's just not just being more productive or being better off or having more healing or being just better off in consensus reality, which are all great things. But it's really development of mastery of consciousness, ontological integration, as well as fundamental well-being. And the difference between normal well-being is that that's context-dependent, circumstance-dependent, but something like fundamental well-being runs really deep. It's like no matter what happens, you are there, you are fine. And all of these levels can contribute to planetary awakening, well, except level 0, and not necessarily, but only this third level can really kind of do so in a profound way. Now, of course, I'm advocating for the importance of a path or a vehicle towards awakening. And here, of course, there are spiritual traditions. Some people might not resonate with that. And what do? Well, there are things emerging, but we do have, I personally am biased. I respect the Tibetan tradition. It has over 700,000 or something volumes of common consciousness and mind, and it's been spanning over 2,000 years. So here we in our Western cultures, we started like 150 years ago to do that. So we're a little bit behind. But my main practice, and what I kind of recommend the people I work with as well, is something that might be familiar in the integral community, something like integral life practice or integrative practice. And this is something that it's a practice that you develop over 5 different modalities: the intellectual, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, and the interpersonal. Hopefully I got them all right. And yes, people like Ken Wilber have talked about it, Jorge Ferrer, and others. So it depends on what you find best resonates with you. And I would argue that for any successful integration process, there is this element of group integration that should not be avoided. To be honest, I kind of was skeptical of group integration work, doing my own work, and going into these spaces and into these circles and relating to others in this way kind of cleared certain blockages that were kind of deeper within me and helped me. So I kind of can only recommend them. Beyond Experience and Footsteps are from the Mind Foundation. I also kind of co-facilitate them as well. But there are also other opportunities out there. And hopefully there's kind of growing number and need for these things. All right. This is very, very, very brief. I think that there is kind of a gap in our world today because, as Ken Wilber noted, most spiritual paths are not yet sufficiently adapted to rational and postmodern structures, and the other way around. So I think that people who are striving to be mentors, guides, or researchers in this field should do exactly what also the two of you said. I mean, we should all go through this valley of despair, have these deep personal experiences, and go on our own awakening journeys, and develop some proficiency in subtle and causal dimensions of consciousness, because we're working, or we want to work with people that do that, and we don't have much of that in our Western culture as of yet. So there's a really big need to develop that. And in a way to kind of end this, how does integral psychedelic integration look to me? Well, I say it's getting mystical without the molecules, and this is again something that's my own view, it's biased, but I found that in my own journeys, I managed to integrate my journeys deeper and realize the more profound kind of level of personal satisfaction and just overall being by managing to have similar states and similar experiences without the actual psychedelics. Because I discovered why, in my mind, there was this deeply ingrained, and might have been cultural, deeply ingrained idea that this is only because of the drugs or only because of the molecules. So now this is possible on a path towards fundamental well-being, because getting to these states without kind of the molecules might require a lot of practice, it might require some sacrifices, but I think it's something really deeply valuable for planetary awakening. And I think I am going to leave you here, because I realize that most of you are starting to get pretty hot. We get really hot, and we'll want maybe some fresh air. Maybe we can open the door. So yeah, what I do is I started to do and specialize in ontological integration, and if anyone is interested to hear more or has more questions, I know there's so much to unpack here, just reach out to me. I'll be here the whole day. And thank you so much for listening to me and to giving me this time. And yeah, I'm proud to you. Thank you.